Travel Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our award-winning podcast, Smart People Travel Wise, a platform where we discuss all things about travel. I'm your host, Tennie Sumague, coming to you from my hometown of Woodside, Queens, New York. And happy Hearts Day or Valentine's Day to those who celebrate it. I personally don't celebrate it because for religious reasons, but I think every day should be Happy Heart Day. And that's going to be the topic of our podcast today. Places to love around the world. And plus, we're going to dabble on romantic travels with my fellow travel advisor from TravelWise International, Ronald Lloveras. But before I introduce him, I like to remind everybody, if you are watching this live, please hashtag live. And if you are watching this on replay, hashtag replay. Make sure you tell us where you're coming from so we can acknowledge all of you. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and YouTube. You can also listen on Amazon Fire, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, or download the app PHLV Radio, available on all iOS and Android devices. So we're going to go on to today's topic, which is, of course, travel, but what we not only love about travel, but some of the most romantic places that everyone should travel once in their lifetime. And then we're going to also give you some suggestions on where to travel this year in 2023. Why? Because travel is back. Because all you need is love, and love is all you need. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome back Ronald Lloveras, my fellow travel advisor at TravelWise International. He's also the owner of Adventures. Okay, I'm going to just have him tell you what his travel company is. So let's smash those heart buttons and welcome Ronald Lloveras back to our podcast. Ronald,
Right.
yeah, I've done this so many times and I don't remember the name of your travel company.
All right. Quite all right. Is it Adventures by Ronald Lloveras or Adventures by RL? So
Yes,
uh,
I
you can find me on Facebook as well as Instagram.
yes, found it. And he's also wearing red today too. So,
Just
he's
for the
very
occasion, yes.
So you and I have so much in common, and one of the things we love to do is travel, and that's why we both became travel advisors. And I do want to start off with where you went during New Year's. You traveled with your boyfriend on a Virgin Voyages cruise, and it was his first time. And
Yes.
tell us how that went, because I know I saw those pictures, and boy, I could tell he really loved his vacation.
Indeed, and that is so true because we went on a Virgin Voyages Scarlet Lady New Year's Eve Ahoy itinerary. So that we actually left from Miami. From there, we went to Roatan, Honduras, Costa Maya, Mexico, Bimini Beach Club at Bahamas, and then back to Miami. So my boyfriend have never been on a cruise. So since I know that this is an adults only cruise, I think it would have been a great introduction for him to try cruising with a reputable cruise line. So he had a wonderful time. He never knew how much fun cruising could be. To have all the restaurants available for food, the drinks that you could have based on the bar tab slash, drink package, and the activities are actually provided on the ship as well as off the ship when you're at port. So I got him hooked. We are trying to go on another New Year's cruise, December 30th, in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So to travel
Ooh.
around the islands, it's going to be on the Brilliant Lady, which is one of the third ship that Virgin Voyages is actually putting out. So we look forward to that one. So definitely.
Now, I hear so much when I went to the Travel Adventure Show 2 weeks ago, and then I stopped by the Virgin Voyages booth. And
Mhm.
I tell you, I hear so many great things about Virgin Voyages. And I'm also a big Richard Branson fan as an entrepreneur. And I've said this many times in my podcast. and for those who are listening, Richard Branson is the popular Virgin business mogul of airplanes,
Right.
hotels, and he wasn't a fan of cruising. And then that's kind of the concept of how he created this whole adult only cruise, because he just was never a fan of the whole slides and the he wanted to make his own version of
Right.
a wonderful cruise. And I hear so many great things about it. And for you, what makes Virgin Voyages kind of like, especially for if anyone who is for couples, especially, um what makes it fabulous, aside from the destinations?
I mean, it's actually the fact that it's adults only. I mean, I've been on 2 cruises with them at least, and a lot of the clientele are couples. Either they're going on vacation away from their kids, since it is adults only. Either they are going on a honeymoon, celebrating a birthday, or celebrating an anniversary. It is like one of the destinations for couples to go on, especially. So it compared to other cruise lines, you have 6 restaurants, which you don't really find as much in other cruise lines. But you can dress up as much as you can, feel special the way you want to feel special doing dinners and doing whatever other activities you want to do as a couple. So I mean, it's actually a perfect location or venue, I guess, for couples. So I mean, I was glad that I was able to take my boyfriend for him to experience an ocean cruise for the first time, and so that's I've gotten him to become a fanatic per se of cruising. So instead of me going on solo cruises myself, now I have him to accompany me on future cruises.
Now, you've traveled extensively, and I've traveled extensively, but and I would like to make an announcement here on my podcast. Um, I've never gone on a trip with anybody who I was romantically involved with.
Totally fine. Solo travel is one of the key things that people love to do, because you're actually going on your own schedule, your own wants and desires to do something at a particular location. It comes more tricky if you have, your significant other or even family and friends. The more you have in a traveling group, the more difficult it is to arrange everything. So solo traveling, there's nothing wrong with that.
I know. I love solo traveling, and I usually just also just travel with my family, which I don't. I always have a great time, but I've always wanted to experience traveling with my uh boo. And
Right.
I've always fantasized it for so many years. But I do want to ask, like, how is it planning? How is it different planning with your boyfriend in
Right.
comparison to like traveling like by yourself or with friends?
Right. So we actually talked about that after we got off the ship, and I told them, when I got on the actually Valiant Lady cruise out of Barcelona in August, I did whatever I wanted to do without having to worry about another person's preferences or likes, um, um, or what time they're gonna wake up or what time they want to go to sleep or whatever. I just did whatever I wanted to do. So that's different. And now when I brought him on to the Scarlet Lady New Year's Eve Ahoy itinerary, I have to keep him in mind because since it was his first time, I wanted to make sure that everything that I choose for him in terms of activities or food or restaurants was up to par the way I've expressed and raved about Virgin Voyages. And so my planning was mostly geared towards him and making sure he is having a great time versus just worrying about myself, you know. And so that is a regular thing that happens when you're traveling with a significant other or family and friends. It's not just you or how you wanted to do it. It's making sure that all parties within your group or the couple will actually be on the same boat to do the same activities and the dinners and whatever other features you can find on a cruise.
That's interesting because I think this is probably why I haven't traveled with any of my significant others, or because I want to be in control. It's more
Yes,
like, yeah, I was like, okay,
yes,
this is what I want to do, and you're just tagging along.
right. And so, I mean, it's the different thing also is because of the fact that I've been on the Virgin Voyage cruise. I know some of the shows that they're featuring, and so I know what to look out for. I know which ones to avoid, um, and so like I already have the insider tip. So I wanted to make sure that I curate a perfect cruise for him as a first timer. So, but in the end, he enjoyed it. He loved it. I told him I could arrange for us to try a different cruise line where there might be kids. Um, but
No, no.
I'm really hesitant about that
Well,
because it's
you
like
do.
because it feels like Virgin Voyage is up here, but then you go to a different cruise line with kids. It's like you kind of like going on a lower level. The restaurant quality, availability, you're also going down a lower level. Um, the good thing also about Virgin Voyage is the fact that their beverages and alcohol are all premium brands. In regular cruise lines, they do rail, and then they have different beverage packages if you want to do medium brands versus premium brands. So it can get more expensive that way. But with Virgin Voyage, everything is premium brand, which is perfect. You don't have to worry about the types of, will it make me sick in the next morning or something like that. Everything is premium. You're not going to get sick unless you, of course, overdrink too much,
Yeah,
which never happens.
yeah, I'm actually new to cruising too. I'm just starting to learn more about it, and I would say other than Virgin Voyages, the other cruise line that I would recommend for couples would be Celebrity, because it is
Mhm.
very sophisticated. It doesn't have the slides and the I mean, it is also kid friendly too. They do have like a kid portion on Celebrity, but it's really their ships are very sophisticated and catered to kind of just you know pretty, yeah, like as I mentioned, it's very sophisticated and it has that resort feel where you do feel like you're in you kind of feel like you're in Las Vegas, like when you stay in a luxury hotel
Yeah,
there.
it is
um,
luxurious cruise line, definitely. I would agree to that one.
yeah, now I'm going to ask you, even as a travel advisor, if you
Mhm.
ever had experience planning for couples, and where do you actually, what are some of the if you, yeah, let's start off. Have you ever planned for couples?
I have one time, they were looking for a honeymoon place to go to. One of the questions was, that I usually ask is, where do you want to go? What do you think you want to do? Do you want to do like a physical activity? Do you just want to relax next to the beach, or just wine and dine and do whatever you want to do? If they want to go to Europe, of course, there's several places to go. But if they want to be next to the beach, there's hundreds of locations for couples to go to. And of course, there are particular brands that caters to couples, and so that is, well, one of the bigger options for that I could offer them. But it really depends on how they want to spend their honeymoon together.
I agree with that, because I've had clients who are um giving me suggestions, and I do mostly the Europe market,
Mhm.
and obviously the most popular romantic destinations that they want to go through. I'm gonna say of obviously Italy,
Oh
Greece,
yeah, yep.
especially Santorini and Paris.
I agree on all that. That's definitely. I mean, like I had the last time I went to Italy was back in 2011, and the Spanish Steps and Trevi Fontan. Is that the right way to say it? Anyway,
Found, Trevi found Fontuna, or fountain, right?
so those are like the number one locations where you see a lot of couples hanging out and just sitting,
Oh yeah.
especially the Spanish Steps. All these couples are just sitting on the steps when you're trying to like, you know, look at it and experience it, but you're trying to like walk around people everywhere on the steps. It's a coupley place.
I agree, because the last time I went to Rome, which was about almost 20 years ago, and I was with my sister, and then yeah, we see people. couple making out in the Spanish Steps, and we turn around and we're just like, oh God, ill. I'm in a romantic city with my sister. And it was actually also romantic too because we stayed near the Colosseum or ancient
Okay.
Rome, and there was a full moon. And
Oh,
here comes the violet, and we saw couples making out too, and we're just like, oh, gross.
it's a very romantic city, that's for sure.
Romantic.
But then again, you see the same thing when you go to Paris. If you're like walking up the Champs Elysees, from the Louvre all the way down to the Arc de Triomphe, you'll see all these couples just walking down the middle area, hand in hand, all like sitting down on the benches and having a great time. It's a
Yeah,
very
and
romantic.
yeah, and I'm hoping I return to Paris. I'm hoping I'm gonna go this year. I'm planning to if I have the funds because
Mhm.
somebody I know is getting married there because this
Ah,
fiance in lives in Paris.
okay.
So I mean I when did I go to Paris? 2001. I was still in college. So and it was with my sister and her best friend. So that's one
Okay.
city that um my you know, the places that you, because I'm a girl, and every girl always dreams of the place where they want to get engaged or like have their first kiss.
At the
Um,
Eiffel Tower.
exactly, with the lights flickering, and I'm
Yeah.
eating, yeah, I'm eating a macaroon, and then the love of my life proposes to me with a nice round cut um diamond. But now that was my fantasy before, but now it just doesn't matter anymore. It, engagement rings are too expensive. I'd rather save that on a nice honeymoon.
Good deal.
Yeah. And one of my close friends actually approached me. And it's been on her bucket list Greece, especially Santorini, the Greek islands. And a lot of people that is one of the most popular romantic destinations in Europe. A lot of it and I've been to I don't know, have you been to Santorini? Um
Oh, not. There is a Virgin Voyage itinerary that they call it the Greek Glow. I think that's what it's called. It. But I'm looking into it, doing it in August, maybe if I can swing it, depending on work schedules. So
yeah.
um, it's on my bucket list definitely because I've never been to Greece.
I love Greece and I love Santorini. And obviously, I went there with my sister and her best friend, and we saw the sunset. And it was like, oh boy, we keep doing all these romantic places together.
Oh,
It is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen a sunset,
yeah.
overlooking the water with um, the blue domes. Um, and yeah, going back to my friend who inquired me about Santorini, that's something that she's always been wanting to do with her husband, whether they do it by land tours or cruises. And I know
Right.
Royal Caribbean has, and also Virgin Voyages also sails to Santorini, and I want to promote it here on the podcast. Yeah, anybody who's interested in going to Greece, try it on a cruise because why? You know, it's like hotel and food all in one, and then you get to sail to different ports um,
Yeah,
along the way.
the downside to land traveling is that you can probably get stuck in one location, one city for the entire duration, unless you really want to travel by car or air to other various cities. So going on a cruise will give you a tasting or an appetizer of what different cities can provide you in terms of the food, the culture, and the sights to see. So let's just say if you do go on a Greece cruise, and there's like at least 5 ports. From those 5 ports, you'll say, oh, and next vacation I want to go here and then over there, and like kind of prioritize the locations based on those ports that you've experienced.
That's
But
good.
like with the last time I was in Paris, we traveled around, but it's mostly in Paris. But I know there's other parts of Paris that I would have to take a train, or even if I want to drive, or maybe have to fly. And so that's more of a cost to even try doing that within a small time frame. Especially if you have a week, you can't do everything by yourself. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to, if you're going from city to city and land travel, you have to make sure you get your transportation to get there, your hotel to stay there, how many nights to stay there, where are you going to eat, what are you going to do. But in the cruise, you're just hopping on and off to a different city almost every day. And then all your food and hoteling is just on the cruise ship and it's right there. Easy
Yep.
peasy.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now we're still we're still on the topic of Europe, and sometimes movies inspire us travelers to to travel. And
Mhm.
one of my favorite movies of all time is Love Actually.
Ah, okay.
Always been on my, but I've been to London twice, but I've always wanted to go to London during the holidays because of Love Actually. And I don't know if you ever seen the movie, Ronald. It's
I've
uh,
seen bits and pieces of it. It's like so far. I think it's from 2003.
I don't remember when it was really sometime around
Yeah.
there. Well, Love Actually and Notting Hill, those Hugh Grant movies,
Right.
romantic comedies, always make me want to go to London because the whole the love story of it.
It's like it's basically a story of various couples and their love stories, right? Is
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
okay?
So yeah,
I think
so there's
I think I've
yeah,
seen it.
yeah. Then Hugh Grant's he's like the prime minister of um I think he plays the prime minister of the UK, and then he falls in love with this single
Mhm.
mother, and then during the Christmas they're caught kissing under the mistletoe during a Christmas concert or something. it's but just seeing that too, why I love London a lot. I mean, London is a lot like New York City, but but what I love about it, other than people's accents,
Oh yeah, that
is,
could be sexy.
is the atmosphere. And also, they still on the topic of Hugh Grant too with Notting Hill. I just love that movie. I watched it recently out of boredom.
Out of boredom. My
Out of
God.
boredom on my Hulu, and I will never forget this line about as the character Hugh Grant is
Hmm.
a book owner of a and he sells travel books.
Okay.
That's his character, and then he falls in love with Julia Roberts, who's this very popular actress, movie actress. And then
Uh,
she tries to hide. I think she tries to hide from paparazzi by going to that bookstore, and then she meets Hugh Grant, and then they connect. And then the most famous line is this: "I'm just a average girl who's just looking for love or who wants to fall in love." So when I see those two movies, those that's why I'm like dying to go back to London, all to
right.
relive, the movie, my fantasy. Although I still want to be proposed to either in Paris or Florence.
Ooh, Florence, beautiful city.
A beautiful
Definitely.
city, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, when I was studying abroad there, back in 2003 for a month, one of my classmates actually was proposed to in front of the Duomo.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty fun.
And I guess I'm gonna just share a little bit of my romantic love life. I mean, it's not really interesting, but I'll tell you about during this time. I had actually met somebody who was in the program, and then
Okay.
um, my seat in the plane was empty. So he was like, "Oh, can I sit here?" And then I introduced him. We introduced ourselves to each other, and then we started to get along really well. Like he was a finance major at Baruch, CUNY Baruch, and I have a thing for business guys because they're my dad was it's the whole like, oh, you kind of like uh a guy who's exactly like your father. analogy.
Okay.
I always like I have a thing for any guy who's in business, finance, or accounting, um, because they have money. But anyway, to go into that story, yeah, it's funny. Like when I met him, I was already creating my own love story, and he
Ah,
actually writes poetry too, and and I think he's also this kind of like he's what do you call that? Hopeless romantic. Yeah.
okay.
So
Oh,
he would woo me with and then we studied an Italian poet named Petrarch, and he writes um love poems in Italian. So he attempted to write
wow.
poetry to me. And I was a voice major too, because he knows I love music and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, my man, my dream has landed. I found him, well, in Italy, of all places. And yeah, it didn't work out, but
That's
due
good
to
though.
religion. But I was living my fantasy at that time.
So
Um,
where was he from though?
I don't know where he is. He's married. I do know he's married, and I did run into him
Hmm.
like a long time ago in Chinatown.
Okay.
Uh,
So he's mostly local, U.S. citizen
yes, he was
also.
local. Yes,
Okay.
he's from New York, which but we just went to different colleges.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and the program, the study abroad program, because it's under the City University of New York system, so
Mhm,
everybody
mhm.
under any student that's under the city, the CUNY system was able to study abroad, and that's how I met him.
Okay.
Um, and
Yeah.
then
Like my college, they did a study abroad in Florence as well, but it was mostly for language. So you want to do language, immersion, they
mhm,
would go there for a whole semester. So that's how I learned about Florence.
yeah, one of the most beautiful cities to one of my favorite cities, and it is on the top. I travel and leisure. I think it's number one on their places
Really?
they love to visit in Europe. So take those to our audience. Florence, Italy, the one of the most beautiful places to see in Europe. Now we're gonna
Right.
segue into um, you've been to the Caribbean,
Yep.
Ronald, and that's one of the most popular places to travel in the North America market, obviously because it's close, and a lot
Mhm.
of I say a lot of couples like to um, go to either Mexico or DR. What other Turks and Caicos, but
Right.
um, where do you what out of all the Caribbean islands you've been to, which do you think is romantic?
Uh, Romantic. I mean, it's a little bit hard to decipher romantic because when you talk about Caribbean, all you think about is the beach. But in terms of romantic, there are several locations like all-inclusive resorts in Mexico, south
Mhm.
of Cancun, Tulum. Tulum is one of those places, that you have to drive maybe at least 2 hours from Cancun Airport. But they do have a lot of all-inclusive resorts that caters to couples. Um, a lot of those all-inclusive resorts are right next to the beach. So it's one of those romantic places that you can just walk down the beach holding hands with your significant other. You can have your dinner while overlooking the beach as well, and feeling the breeze in your hair and your face is just immaculate. It's pretty awesome. So I've only been there once. It was an all-inclusive resort that we were in, and it was a lot of fun. So it's mostly catered to couples, but there are sometimes families that are visiting. As long as the all-inclusive resort is family-oriented, but there are a lot of resorts that are couples only or adults only clientele.
Now you mentioned beaches, right?
Mhm.
And obviously a lot of couples want want the whole sunset, holding your hands with the wind blowing, and you hear the ocean, and then you have that magical kiss. Or
Yeah, And that's the fun part, because especially if you're in an all-inclusive resort that caters to couples, you can actually get arrangements to have dinner on the beach sands, so you can actually time it before the sun sets. So it's very romantic that way.
And most Caribbean places are all inclusive, have that, they offer all of that.
Oh,
And I haven't yet been to the Caribbean. I was supposed to go to Aruba during when was that? During the pandemic, but
okay.
it didn't come. It didn't go into fruition. But I'll tell you one of my bucket list Caribbean destinations that I want to, and why. Okay,
Okay.
number one, because I'm gonna have her, the director of tourism of Curacao on next week. But
Ooh,
that's
okay.
been I've been wanting to go to Curacao. A lot of it is because it's of its Dutch influence,
Yeah.
and I see those ads, and there's a specific. I want to see the colorful houses, and obviously the beach. The beach is there,
Yes.
and yeah, it's mostly because of the Dutch influence that I want to. And also, I didn't know this till the beginning when I started the podcast about the ABC Islands, that I did not know that no hurricanes ever hit Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao until I
Okay.
started doing this podcast. Yeah, and
Didn't
that's
know
a
that either.
I don't now see I'm educating you on what I was educated on.
Good to know.
Good to know. And then I know I've always wanted to do Aruba as well too. It's they don't call it the Happy Island for no reason, and that's one of the most popular Caribbean destinations that a lot of couples or just a lot of beachgoers love to go to.
Yeah.
I'll say, yeah, I don't know much about Bonaire too, but why not throw the ABC? Easy as one, two, three.
Right.
But I
Well,
do, yeah, I know that's, and everybody, Jamaica is always on a lot of people's bucket list, and it is also one of my bucket lists. A lot is because I love music. I love Bob Marley. I'm a huge Bob Marley fan. One Love. Let's get together and feel all right. That is their
yeah.
theme. Um, and and I love my jerks. Jerk chicken, jerk
Chicken, their
pork.
beef, pork, everything.
Yeah,
It's the spices that gets you hooked onto those things.
yeah. So anybody and to our community, if you want to meet a jerk, go to Jamaica.
That's a different type of thing.
And jerk as in jerk the food, not an actual
Right, right,
jerk.
right.
Nobody wants to actually date or marry a jerk.
Not me. Probably not.
Yeah. I'm wondering what is your like kind of like what is in the specifically, let's focus on the Caribbean. Any bucket list Caribbean places that you want to travel that you because you love the culture or the cuisine or
So, I mean, I've gone through various Caribbean locations because I've gone on different cruise lines. The only places I really, really want to try is definitely Curacao. Um, what do you call that? St. Kitts, St. Thomas. I mean, the waters over there are pretty awesome from what I heard. So I think either of those places would definitely be a go-to place if I really want to get down to a Caribbean and spend a whole week down there. And they definitely have a lot of all-inclusive locations as well, and so I can just relax and enjoy. So I think those are my three bucket lists for now in terms of Caribbean.
now we're gonna move to the Caribbean to the 50th state of the United States. Um, I my students in the past think Hawaii is a country.
Whoops. Uh-oh. How old were they? What grade?
When did I do this? This was middle school. When I
Ah,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how you know our education system failed at certain things. But they think Hawaii is a country. But in ways, it is like kind of a separate country. It has its own culture and
Yeah.
vibe. You know, that is
Correct.
one of a place that many people love. I love Hawaii, um, due to poke and what is this poke and the beaches. I love how the beaches there are free, and it is also a popular honeymoon
Oh
destination
yeah.
for many Americans because it's something that they can't afford that, and some people just don't like to travel internationally. Um,
I mean, even though it's actually part of the national U.S. You know?
exactly. I mean
It's a
that's
long flight. Yeah, it's a long flight, especially for us East Coasters. You probably have to connect down to San Francisco or LA before you go to Hawaii. But for those in the West Coast, they probably go direct.
yes, I know.
So what?
From New York, I've done direct to Hawaii. I've been to Hawaii twice,
Okay.
Oahu mainly, and then the second time when I went was Big Island. Yeah, it's probably the worst. I say the jet lag Hawaii back is worse than
Yeah.
my jet lag going from the Philippines and back to the U.S. So, um, but it is a lot of people love Hawaii. I mean, have you been to Hawaii,
I
Ronald?
have
What did you
not.
think?
I have not. I
Oh
know.
man,
I know. I know. It is a location that I would like to try going to. So let's just say if the cruise in December doesn't pan out because of scheduling or whatever, it could be one of the destinations that is up for debate with a boyfriend. So um, it's a location that both of us have never been to. So it would be interesting. And you know what? If we really want to try all inclusive, we have a fellow travel advisor who's actually located there. She moved there last June. So, maybe we could actually use her services to look for a particular resort for us to stay. So who
just
knows?
to let you know, this is what I know. There's no all inclusives in Hawaii. Hawaii
Really?
and Puerto Rico don't have all inclusives, so you have to go, resort everything. But I'll tell you, the
Oh,
food you don't really need in Hawaii. The food is amazing. Malasadas, poke, um, Korean barbecue. What is
John.
the taro? What is this? Hopia pie, shrimp
Oh,
trucks.
yeah. God.
Hopia, not hopia, hopia.
Oh, yeah, it's different.
It's a little different than hopia. Okay.
But there's plenty of Filipinos over there, I'm sure.
Yes, and a lot of Ilocanos there too.
Okay, good to know.
But yeah,
But that's
Hawaii.
that's disappointing to learn that they don't have all inclusives there. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, but that's what also it's also why it's also pricey too. Well, Caribbean too is also pricey, but Hawaii pricey obviously because tourism is a its main economy in
Right.
Hawaii.
I mean,
Yeah,
you got to think about the plane to get there and then the hotel then. So yeah, I see.
yeah. And speaking of Hawaii, South Pacific, and well, because you mentioned about one cruises, and then we did have like a supplier for travel wise on Paul Gongquin. Oh gosh, I
Gauguin, Paul Gauguin.
yeah, yeah. That's how you know. I'm sorry. I apologize to our community for mispronouncing that. And also, but thank you, Ronald, for correcting me.
No
Um,
problem. I was like, what
but
is she trying to say?
like, what is this? Conquistador? I was
I
like,
know.
gong, something.
I was like, is that Chinese?
I was thinking way ahead. Because we are going to talk about Asia in a bit.
Okay.
Um, but, due to South Pacific, because, I love music and musicals, being a music teacher. And, one of my and because of that, when we did our, what was that supplier night, I really am dying to go to Tahiti and French Polynesia.
Oh, Yes. But
Yeah.
it's so hard to get there. So
Yes.
far.
Yes. For those who want to know, and I did some homework, for anyone who is interested in French Polynesia and Tahiti, it's a 14-hour flight from Los Angeles. It's an 8-hour flight. I think it's 8 or 4. Oh, I have to check. But you could also fly there from Honolulu as well, or you take a cruise.
There you go.
Either from Los Angeles or Hawaii.
Hmm.
And I think one of my to do bucket list places to love. What I love, what's so attractive about that is, yes, everybody goes for the bungalows, the overlooking the over what is
Yeah.
the bungalows. Yes, I mean that you see a lot of that. They have that in the Philippines, Maldives, Indonesia, but there's just something about that. It's just kind of like the trademark of French Polynesia. And I think also because I watched Survivor too, that might
Oh, boy.
and then it also I'm telling you, also my romantic fantasy, yes, is to just um be with my future love, and
Oh,
we're just watching the water.
right.
Just we're not doing anything. We're just looking over the water over, and I want to do that in Tahiti because the water, based on the pictures, it's just clear. It's crystal, that turquoise blue water that has no, like, I was gonna say preservatives.
The chemicals?
And I mean, no, no garbage or coral
Right.
reefs. It's like really clear, and I think that's you know, I know for many travelers and many couples, they want that's also another place that they want to honeymoon or go to because of
Mhm.
the setting. It's just very romantic. Well, but to me, Ronald, everywhere I go, there's always some kind of romance.
Oh, you can never get away from that, especially in Virgin Voyage.
Yes, yes. Virgin Voyages. If if you're listening on, we've mentioned Virgin Voyages so many times in this podcast episode. It hint hint.
Like I said, I've been to other cruise lines, and so far, Virgin Voyage has exceeded my expectations. And so I'm not even thinking about other cruise lines anymore. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go. Let's see what Virgin Voyage is gonna have for that particular location. And for 2023 and 2024, they're releasing 2 more ships. You got the Brilliant Lady and the Resilient Lady, who are now sailing. Some of them, I forget which one. I think it was Brilliant Lady. After she sails around the Mediterranean and Greece area, she'll go from that location down to Dubai, down to Singapore, southeast for the winter time frame. So
Nice.
it's like they're just expanding. So hopefully, we'll see what else is in store for us after 4 ships. But people are excited.
And in 2024, and during our winter, the Southern Hemisphere's summer,
Mhm.
Virgin
Yeah,
Voyages is also doing sailings from Sydney and Auckland,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
actually that's what I'm excited for too. Once I get on the Virgin Voyages bandwagon, and I've
For sure.
always wanted to do an Aussie summer.
I've
And
never
then,
been.
oh, Australia is one of the I tell you, Australia is probably uh the culture in itself. It's just they're so polite. And being a loud person from New York City, I remember going on the bus because I have family there, and I was with my
Okay.
sister. We
Oh,
were
good.
going to we were going to the suburb of Sydney
Uh,
from the city. And then, how impatient New Yorkers are. They're all like, if you're, I remember this lady couldn't find like her money or like her card. And she was all like, kind of like disheveled. And I'm just like, here I am. I'm just like, come on, hurry up. I want to sit. Oh my God, I want to just tell her, hurry up. But they're all just like, and just patiently quiet on the line. And then, she apologized and they're like, no worries. I was just like, oh my God, I love Australians on top of Koreans and African Americans.
So you've
talking about the
been
love.
to any other cities you've been to?
No, I haven't been to any other cities, but I do hear a lot about Melbourne. On my bucket list too is Kangaroo Island and Cairns. I know there's I think Australian way of saying it, but that's where the Great Barrier Reef is. Thanks, Finding Nemo.
Well, no, because I'm kind of curious to know. We're talking about Valentine's and couples. Where do you think would be best for anybody who's never been to Australia? Would you think Melbourne, Sydney, or whether with other cities that could be a better place for honeymooners to go to?
I mean, everybody has to start with Sydney, obviously, because it is the largest city in Australia, and it has the Sydney Opera House, the iconic.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I love and being a music lover, I really love the architecture of Sydney Opera House. But when I did watch an opera there, I looked at the inside. I was like, this is ugly. But they did renovate it. And then I was just like, really? I was like, I mean, I'm a New Yorker and I've been to so many opera, the Met. So my expectations were high, but when I watched the opera, I was just like, this is kind of an ugly. The thing is kind of ugly and stuff, but it's such a beautiful. The architecture is so beautiful, and the area too. The circular quay it's Instagrammable.
Right. So the inside is just dated and just needs a little bit of a modernized.
Yeah. I think they did, however, they did renovate it. But I've always wanted to go to Melbourne because I'm also a big Australian. I'm a big tennis fan, and I've been wanting to do watch an Australian Open match there. And then they even say it's a lot of people that has traveled to Australia, they actually love Melbourne more than Sydney, which was interesting. It's a little bit more cosmopolitan. I know the shopping there is great. They have great street art there. And then I guess also for beach lovers, mostly they go to Queensland. And there's a lot of so a lot of the nice beaches are in Queensland, Brisbane, Cairns, in that area too.
Okay. So good to know.
That's good to know. And speaking, because you did mention Singapore, and that is probably one of my favorite Asian cities in the planet. And the best time to go also is during New Year. I went to Singapore. I spent New Year's there in Singapore before the pandemic hit. And you see the fireworks overlooking the Marina Sand Bay. And the reason why I wanted to go to Singapore, obviously, was food and crazy rich Asians. And obviously, the whole romantic thing, she gets proposed by a rich guy.
Right.
They had their engagement party in Marina Sands.
Yeah.
We were eating together with another couple at the hawker stall. So there comes my fantasy.
I've yet to be there, so that's on my bucket list as well.
Yeah, Asia. The Asia. That's also another in thing too in travel. You see a lot of influencers wanting to go to Asia. A lot of it, even though the travel time from the United States to Asia is it's quite lengthy, but a lot of people like to travel there, and they could do luxury is because it's cheap.
Right.
Well, except Japan. And Singapore is very expensive too. If you don't live for me, being a New Yorker, it wasn't, I didn't see any difference, but to many, it is it is expensive
Uh,
there too.
mm.
So what
Apparently,
I
some
want
of
to
my
ask
books.
you, I want to ask you because you are a cruiser.
Okay.
What's what's on your list, or like where do you want to, or where do you love to travel in Asia? Which areas? And I have a feeling I know the answer, but I'm gonna have you answer it. Or do you want me to guess?
Go ahead and guess first.
I don't know, Mekong River. Because of river cruising. I'm thinking that. Yeah.
They do have the Mekong River cruise. I think the only one that I know about is Ama Waterways. They do a river cruise by them, which is very luxurious river cruise. I know other cruise lines do go around, to Southeast Asian and to Japan and Korea, but I have yet to try a cruise in that side of the world. It's because of the fact that it's the travel is so far just to get to that part, and then you're having to uh, um, you know get acquainted with the time change, and then you're trying to enjoy the cruise, but your body's still a little bit disheveled from the time change. So eventually, I'll try one of those cruises, even maybe the Mekong. Who knows? I have so many places I want to
Last
go on a
question.
cruise. It's just crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could do like we could go on and on, but this is only like an hour we only have an hour on this podcast, and you've just been on this podcast for like 10 times. But last question, I do want to
Okay.
ask you one last, yeah, one last question. I do want to ask, um where do you want to like, probably what is the most romantic place that you've been to in the
I would say really Paris. Paris, it's you have a lot of restaurants that you can just sit outside, enjoy the scenery, have a drink of wine, and do everything with your significant other. And also, going up the Eiffel Tower, there's a lot of couples there as well. But just walking around the Champs-Élysées area, either if you're just walking in the middle part of Champs-Élysées, it's just a beautiful city itself, and it's like a perfect place for couples just to hang out and enjoy. Technically, even though
I
I don't speak French at all, like I would go there for some romantic ventures.
I agree. I totally agree. And yes, I well, thank you, Ronald, for coming on again. We'll touch base. We'll do another episode on like a
Awesome.
part two. And thank you for your suggestions, for your stories, and yeah,
Thanks for having me again. I enjoyed this.
you're welcome. And thank you to our viewers. And we hope that you learned something on this podcast, whether you love to travel or wish to travel anywhere you want to go. You could always reach out to us at itravelwise.com. You could reach out to Ronald on Facebook. You could reach out to me, and we will plan probably the best trip that you will ever go to once in your lifetime.
Yes.
Smart People Travel Wise airs every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Pacific. I'm Tennie Sumague. Catch you all next time. Take care.